Hey guys, this is Chris, and I am with Tristan from Broken Window Studios. I promised I would get that right. And we tried your game today, Reflections, here at BFIG, the Boston Festival of Indie Games. I was pretty impressed. Immediately, just like the way Ross actually introduced me to it, he said "Gone Home." That was the first thing in my brain. I was like, I have to play this game. So. Again, because you describe it really well, can you just tell us about the game again?
Sure. Well, so you mentioned Gone Home. The pitch I give that it is basically it's like Gone Home meets the Stanley Parable combined with like an internet questionnaire. Because basically the game goes through all of your gameplay tendencies and creates like a profile or an aggregate of all the actions you take. And then that changes the story and the levels in the story based on that profile. So it's not about making all these explicit branching choices, it's about figuring out what your trends are as a gamer and by extension as the character in the game.
Yeah, because I noticed that when I played, because I have to touch everything in any game I play. And the game considered me very explorative, so I got to an exploration zone, which was very different from the first zone, where I had to interact with everything in a room to provide a color. Everything starts black and white, which was really cool. I like that, when like the vibrant color really kind of comes out. But then I got this forest, where everything was just getting colored as I get near it. What other kind of experiences are there?
Sure. Well, the game is kind of based around core gamer profiles, like tendencies. So there's kind of three major tendencies. One is for like general exploration, one is for problem solving and puzzle solutions, and one is kind of for completionism in smaller areas of like, so you were kind of the broad strokes of checking out everything, but then another player might go and they might go into one room and check every single little part of that room and then go on to the next room and check every single part of that. And so like, all of those things link back to tendencies in the user's story as well. So you got an exploration of a forest. If you had performed a lot of mechanical tasks and processes, you might end up working as an engineer in an office, or you might actually be the boss if you ended up doing really well at that. You might be doing a home renovation in the second act if you were really focused on kind of fleshing out the home area and really exploring all the nooks and crannies of that area. So it's basically lots of different variations of these kind of core ideas, and then each of them have different versions of how successful you were at that area, and then layering on top what your secondary tendencies were, and then adding in relationships and saying, okay, now you have this character that you are in a good relationship with, but this character you aren't, and then when you jump to 10 years later, you could be married to that one character, or you could have like a bitter divorce, or whatever it might be, depending on the combination of circumstances.
So all this stuff is taking place, and we're taking serious time jumps. I know you mentioned more than once, 10 years. So what is kind of the entire timeline we're looking at for a game like this, if it's not a spoiler?
Yeah, sure. So basically it's three major moments in your life. And this is kind of similar to the new Steve Jobs film that's coming out by David Fincher, because he's basically taking these series of important moments in Steve Jobs' life, and he's telling the story of Steve Jobs through like I think 5 days, right? So we're doing something similar in Reflections where we're taking 3 days. But one of them is when you're about to go off to college. Then the next one is like 10 or 15 years later when you've settled into where you want to be in your career or what your kind of life goal is. And then the last one is at the last day of your life. So it's the most profound segment where you really get to see it play back in front of you what might have gone right and what might have gone wrong in your life.
So it's just kind of like, I don't want to call it a recap, I feel like that's selling it short, but it's kind of like, it's showing you the result of everything that you did.
I mean, it's a literal ending, right? Because it's the actual end of your life, and that carries into what you see and what you experience. Because like, when people are coming to the end of their lives, a lot of times they start thinking about what they could have done and what they maybe didn't do, and they see people around them that were important in their lives because people sort of rally around someone who's about to pass, and that's what we're reflecting to you in the very end of the game, which will come out in the final version, not in the early access release, but in the full release you'll get to see that experience, which will be a combination of everything.
Okay. And then another thing that you mentioned, I heard you mentioning to someone else, that I thought was really interesting. Your character is just a blank slate, no gender or anything.
Yeah.
Because I know you mentioned you can you can have a crush on a girl, you can have a crush on the guy in the beginning, but the game never tells you you're a guy or you're a girl. That's kind of left for you to decide. What kind of drove that very broad decision?
Well, I mean, there is an obvious technical reason, which is that every permutation of a story we have of different branches of okay, you're male with a male, you're male with a female, you're female with a male, and so on, that becomes hard to manage, first of all.
Okay.
But then, and so we can get a lot of value out of making that more interpretive rather than saying that you're a gendered character. But then the other thing is that the presentation of a game, when you start out asking them a question, you want, if you're going to ask a question, you want it to be something that is relatively important to ask. And we had originally considered the idea of oh, you can be male or female, and the game will say, are you male or female? And to be honest, it just felt really ugly. It's what are we saying when we ask this question? Do people think that the color of the drapes will be different because you're a female? And then it's and then if you do that, it's even worse, because then you're assuming some sort of gendered stereotype about what the character would be. And it's we wanted the game to be defined by you and not by some sort of arbitrary scaffold. But that being said, I didn't originally design the game with that idea in mind. My original goal was to just make a game that was kind of about me. And so there was only a girlfriend, there wasn't a boyfriend, there was only a female crush, not
Was
a male.
Chelsea your high school crush?
Not literally, but there was a Chelsea equivalent. So, but yeah, I mean, and actually, without saying something overly controversial, I think the last year or so, the game community has had a little bit of upset regarding gender and diversity discussions. And to be honest, it was the first time I really thought about the implications of making a story that is just meant for me and isn't meant for somebody else. And we actually made the decision after seeing some of the discussions about gender diversity in games that, it shouldn't be this game about this one guy that is exactly like me. It should be about a larger set of people. And that just ended up being, all those things combined together made that answer to that question pretty obvious, but it didn't come out immediately.
Okay, just something that kind of evolved as the industry evolved.
Yeah.
So you're kind of, not
And as I
reacting,
evolved,
but
as I got smarter.
Yeah, so kind of evolving with the industry, going in kind of the same direction.
Yeah.
Very, neutral but welcoming kind of direction.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay.
And actually, one thing that's great about that too is that I've had to make decisions about what kind of content and narrative hooks go into it in all positive ways to make it more accessible to that blank slate. Because I want to give things that are specific and interesting and unique, but I don't want to take stereotypes and just regurgitate stereotypes. And I think that that's something that can naturally happen when you're thinking about impressionistic stories. Is it oh, well, men do this, women do that, if you're one ethnicity, you would do this or that. And so by being neutral with it, it's really easy to get around that concern.
Okay. No, it makes a lot of sense, definitely. Now, so...
We're here at MIT, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, where can you play the game right now, and where will the game ultimately end up? When all is said and done, you say, I'm done.
Okay, so right now the game is out on Steam Early Access. And for the weekend of Boston FIG, we have it on sale, but I don't know if that'll be the case by the time you release this, so I can't necessarily say that.
You guys missed out. Still buy it.
Now it's still on sale on Early Access because Early Access is usually $10. It's a little cheaper this weekend, so I'm sorry you
I think
missed
you
out.
said $7.99.
$7.99
I'm
this
buying
weekend.
it for $7.99, guys.
I'm sorry if you get this late, but so it's $9.99 on Steam and it'll be $14.99 when it launches, and that's just because we didn't want to charge full price for people being our guinea pigs with this experience. The final version of the game is going to have more content in Acts 1, 2, and 3. It's going to have the complete ending scenario that has a lot of interactive gameplay elements, whereas right now you get kind of a text summary of your ending and we're leaving the rest for later. And then the final version of the game is going to come out on Steam, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. So it's confirmed for all of those platforms.
Same price across
Yeah,
platforms?
it's going to be the same price for all of them.
Okay.
And the console versions may be coming out a little bit after the PC version, just because we're a small studio and we're trying to focus on a game before platforms. So I would expect towards the early part of 2016 we'll have Reflections fully out.
Fully released all platforms.
Yeah, and there may be a little bit of a gap between console and PC, but nothing too substantial.
Well, that's great. Thanks for taking the time with me today. We
Sure.
really appreciate it. Guys, check out Reflections right now on Steam Early Access. If you're holding out for the console release, then
So there's links in the description. I'll put the links.
links in the
Put
description.
some links in the description.
You're whispering at me.
I was pantomiming. Pantomiming. There's a difference.
You're in the video now. I mean,
You're
what do you wanna
in.
do
You're
now?
a part of it.
I'm Mark.
You're a part of this. He's Mark. So we will link it. We'll link
Okay.
it for you. So it will be in the description of the video. So check it out today. Console owners, hold out till early 2016. It'll be worth the wait. And
Or get it on both platforms. Really, I don't see a problem with that.
get it on both. Do what the man says. He seems like a smart guy. I would trust him.
Yeah, I've learned a thing or two about marketing.
But guys, this is Chris from ThoseGamingNerds.com and Mark by association. Thanks for watching.